My beloved child, there is a return written into your story that you did not request, did not invite, and did not imagine would circle back in this way. You have felt a strange pull lately, like a door behind you creaking open without sound, like a name floating into your thoughts without permission. This is not nostalgia. This is not coincidence. This is a precise moment forming, one that has been waiting for the exact version of you that exists right now. Someone from your past is preparing to step back into your life, not because they suddenly understood your value, not because they healed, and not because time made them wiser. They are coming back because something in their world has collapsed, and your name has become the last stable place their mind can stand on. What makes this powerful is not their return. What makes this dangerous is the reason behind it. They are drawn to the version of you they remember, not the version you have become, and that gap between memory and reality is where everything will shift. You may think this is about unfinished emotions, but it is about unfinished consequences. They left with something they did not earn, and now life is demanding repayment. Every silence you endured, every unanswered message, every moment you learned to survive without them quietly rewired your energy. You stopped chasing. You stopped explaining. You stopped proving. And the moment you detached, the echo of your absence became unbearable to them. This is why their return feels sudden. This is why it feels urgent. This is why it will feel emotional. But do not misunderstand the timing. They are not returning to love you. They are returning because they need something only you can no longer give freely. Listen carefully now, because this is where most people misread the sign and repeat the cycle. The reason they are coming back is tied to a loss they cannot reverse. Something they depended on has failed. Someone they trusted has disappeared. A path they chose with confidence has led them into a quiet panic they do not know how to escape. When that happened, their mind traveled backward, not forward. It searched for the last place where they felt seen without effort, supported without obligation, accepted without performance. And your energy appeared like a familiar shelter in a storm they created themselves. They remember how you carried emotional weight without complaint. They remember how you forgave without being asked. They remember how you stayed when logic said you should leave. What they do not remember is how much that cost you. What they do not see is the strength you had to build to survive their absence. This return is not about romance or friendship or closure. It is about relief. They believe that if they can re-enter your life, the pressure inside them will finally loosen. They are wrong. And the shocking truth is this. The universe is not sending them back to be saved. It is sending them back to face who you are now. Your presence will not comfort them the way it used to. Your silence will be louder. Your boundaries will be unfamiliar. Your calm will feel cold to someone who expected warmth on demand. This is why their return will feel intense. Not because love is reigniting, but because reality is confronting them all at once. Here is the part that will surprise you, even if you think you are ready for it. Their return is not random, and it is not permanent unless you allow it to be. They are coming back to test a door that has already closed energetically. They want access, not connection. They want reassurance, not partnership. They want the old dynamic, not the evolved truth. And the moment they realize you no longer respond the same way, the mask they wear will slip. You will notice small signs first. The urgency in their tone. The emotional stories that seem designed to pull you back into a caretaker role. The subtle reminders of shared memories, as if history alone should guarantee them a place beside you again. But something inside you will not move. You will feel it. A quiet awareness that says you are no longer available for emotional labor without reciprocity. This is where the once-in-a-lifetime revelation happens. You are not meant to reunite with them. You are meant to see clearly who they have always been when they are not in control. Their return is a mirror, not a reunion. It is showing you how far you have come and how little they have changed. And that realization will hit them harder than any rejection ever could. Because the power has shifted without a single argument, without a dramatic goodbye, without revenge or explanation. Your growth did what words never could. Do not rush this moment, because what unfolds next will define a turning point you will remember long after they are gone again. When they step back into your life, even briefly, they will expect familiarity. They will expect you to soften. They will expect the same emotional access they once had. But what they will meet instead is presence without attachment. Kindness without sacrifice. Awareness without obligation. This will confuse them. It will unsettle them. They will try to regain control through emotion, through guilt, through urgency. And you will realize something powerful in real time. You no longer need to explain yourself to be understood. You no longer need to give to be worthy. You no longer need their validation to feel complete. This is why their return is happening now and not earlier. Earlier, it would have pulled you back. Now, it only confirms your strength. The universe does not bring people back to repeat lessons. It brings them back to test whether the lesson was learned. And you, without even trying, will pass that test by staying aligned with who you have become. The shock is not that they are returning. The shock is that their presence no longer has the power it once did. Remember this above all else, because this is the truth hidden beneath everything you are about to experience. Someone is coming back to your life, but the reason is only for their awakening, not your attachment. They will leave changed, whether they admit it or not. You will remain steady, whether they understand it or not. This chapter is not about reconciliation. It is about confirmation. Confirmation that you survived what once broke you. Confirmation that your growth is real. Confirmation that the past no longer defines your future. Their return is brief, purposeful, and revealing. And when it ends, you will not feel loss. You will feel clarity. You will feel peace. You will feel the quiet confidence of someone who no longer wonders what could have been, because you finally see what was, and you no longer want it. My beloved child, what happens after their return is far more important than the return itself, because this is where the invisible shift becomes undeniable. At first, they will behave carefully, almost gently, as if walking across thin glass. Their words will sound thoughtful. Their tone will feel familiar. They will speak as if time simply paused and is now resuming from where it left off. But beneath that surface calm is a quiet desperation. They are not here to reconnect. They are here to stabilize themselves. You will sense it in the way they ask questions that circle around your life, your routines, your emotional availability. They will want to know how you are doing, but what they truly want to measure is whether you are still open. Whether you are still reachable. Whether the version of you they relied on still exists. And as you answer calmly, without oversharing, without urgency, without emotional exposure, something inside them will tighten. They expected warmth to rush back in. They expected familiarity to erase the distance. Instead, they will feel something colder but far more powerful. Respect mixed with uncertainty. They will realize they are standing in front of someone who no longer waits. Someone who no longer bends to be chosen. Someone who no longer feels incomplete without them. This realization will shake them more than anger ever could. Because anger would mean they still mattered enough to disturb your peace. Your calm tells them the truth they were avoiding. You moved on in ways they never prepared for. There will be a moment, subtle but unforgettable, when they understand they no longer control the emotional rhythm between you. In the past, your reactions were predictable. Your concern was guaranteed. Your presence was constant. Now, your energy feels measured, intentional, and self-contained. This is when their behavior will change. They may become more expressive. More nostalgic. They may suddenly acknowledge mistakes they once ignored. They may speak about growth, lessons, and realizations as if these words alone should rebuild a bridge. But listen closely. Their insights will still center around how they feel, what they lost, what they regret. Rarely will they speak about what you endured without being prompted. Rarely will they acknowledge the weight you carried in silence. This is not because they are incapable of understanding. It is because accountability threatens the very comfort they are seeking from you. And here is the shocking truth most people never realize in time. Someone can miss you deeply and still not be ready to treat you differently. Someone can regret losing you and still desire the old dynamic more than a new beginning. This is why their return feels intense but incomplete. They want access to your presence without adapting to your evolution. They want reassurance without responsibility. And the more clearly you see this, the less power their words will have over you. As days pass, you will notice a strange reversal. The one who once felt distant will now seem eager. The one who once hesitated will now reach out. The one who once left will now linger. But this shift will not bring satisfaction. It will bring clarity. You will recognize patterns you once overlooked. How they approach you when they feel uncertain. How they pull away when stability returns to their life. How their attention fluctuates based on their emotional needs rather than mutual connection. This awareness will not hurt the way it once did. Instead, it will ground you. You will realize that the longing you once felt was never about them as they truly were. It was about the potential you believed in. The future you imagined. The version of them you hoped they would become. And now, standing in front of you, they are exactly who they have always been, only more exposed. Their return removes illusion. It strips away hope-based attachment. It replaces fantasy with fact. This is the moment where many people feel tempted to retreat into old habits, simply because familiarity feels safer than truth. But you will not. Something inside you has shifted permanently. You no longer fear losing them, because you finally understand what you gained when they left. Pay attention to your inner responses, because they will guide you more honestly than any conversation ever could. You will notice that your heart no longer races when their name appears. Your mind no longer spirals over their intentions. Your body no longer reacts with urgency. This emotional neutrality is not indifference. It is integration. It means the wound has healed enough to stop bleeding at the slightest touch. And this is where the universe delivers its most unexpected message. The return was never meant to pull you back. It was meant to show you that you are no longer standing in the same place. They came back to see if the door was still open. What they discovered instead was that the house itself has changed. Different energy. Different boundaries. Different standards. You did not lock them out. You simply moved forward. And that realization will follow them long after this chapter closes. They will leave with questions they cannot answer. They will wonder why your presence no longer feels available in the same way. They will feel the loss more clearly now than they did when they walked away. Because now, they see what they lost, not through memory, but through comparison. This is the deeper purpose, the one rarely spoken but always present. Their return is a closing ritual, not a reopening. It is the final confirmation that your growth was real. That your healing was not temporary. That your self-respect is no longer negotiable. When this connection fades again, and it will, you will not feel abandoned. You will feel complete. You will understand that some people come back not to stay, but to witness who you became without them. And that is enough. This chapter ends not with longing, but with liberation. Not with hope, but with truth. Not with attachment, but with peace. And that peace will remain with you long after their footsteps disappear from your path. My beloved child, there is a moment that arrives quietly after their second departure, a moment where the noise finally settles and you are left alone with the truth you could not fully see before. This is not the silence of loss. This is the silence of understanding. You will notice it late at night or early in the morning, when your mind replays the interaction not with emotion, but with clarity. You will realize that nothing they said truly surprised you. Not the explanations. Not the regret. Not the sudden concern. Because deep down, you had already lived through the pattern. What changed was not their behavior. What changed was your perception. You no longer interpret their actions as confusing or mysterious. You see them as consistent. Predictable. Rooted in unmet needs they never learned to take responsibility for. This realization does not make you bitter. It makes you free. Because when you stop trying to decode someone, you stop giving them power over your peace. Their return showed you something priceless. You no longer romanticize emotional inconsistency. You no longer mistake longing for love. You no longer confuse history with destiny. And this awareness settles into you like a quiet strength, one that does not announce itself, but changes everything. The shock is not emotional anymore. It is intellectual. You finally understand that what once felt intense was actually unstable, and what feels calm now is real. At this stage, something unexpected happens inside you that many people never reach. You stop wondering what you could have done differently. You stop replaying conversations to find mistakes. You stop imagining alternative endings. The mental loop breaks. This is where healing turns into authority. You are no longer a participant in the story. You become the observer. You see how they entered when it suited them and exited when it didn't. You see how your patience once filled gaps they refused to address. You see how your empathy carried weight that was never shared. And instead of anger, you feel something far more powerful. Detachment. Not coldness. Not resentment. Detachment rooted in self-respect. You understand now that their return was never about unfinished love. It was about unfinished dependence. They were drawn back not because they missed you, but because they missed how you made life easier for them. That realization lands softly but firmly. It rewrites the past without rewriting the pain. It allows you to keep the lesson without reopening the wound. And this is where your energy becomes unrecognizable to them. You no longer respond from habit. You respond from alignment. That is why they feel the distance even if you remain kind. That is why your presence feels unavailable even if you are polite. You are no longer emotionally accessible in ways that harm you. What follows next is a subtle but powerful internal upgrade. You begin to recognize red flags not as threats, but as information. You no longer feel the need to confront or correct. You simply note and move accordingly. This is the level of emotional maturity that changes the trajectory of your future connections. Because now, when someone approaches you, you do not ask whether they like you. You observe whether they are consistent. You do not ask whether they miss you. You watch how they show up. You do not cling to potential. You respond to reality. This shift did not come from books, advice, or motivation. It came from experience. From loss. From silence. From rebuilding yourself piece by piece while no one was watching. Their return was the final test, and you passed it without effort. Not because you resisted them, but because you no longer needed them. That is the difference. That is the evolution. And this is why this chapter feels different from every other ending you have known. It does not ache. It does not linger. It closes cleanly. Like a door that finally fits its frame. There is another truth unfolding now, one that will become clearer with time. Their return did not reopen an old wound, but it did reveal how deeply healed you are. You did not chase clarity. You embodied it. You did not demand accountability. You recognized patterns. You did not seek closure. You became it. And this inner stability will begin to affect every area of your life. Your standards will rise naturally. Your tolerance for emotional confusion will drop effortlessly. You will feel less drawn to intensity and more drawn to consistency. Less attracted to charm and more attracted to character. This is not because you hardened. It is because you learned discernment. The connection that once consumed your thoughts now feels like a completed chapter. Not erased. Not denied. Completed. And this completion creates space. Space for something aligned. something mutual, something grounded. Their return cleared the emotional residue that was blocking what comes next. That was its purpose all along. Understand this clearly, because this is the final revelation of this phase. Someone came back into your life not to stay, but to show you that you are no longer who you used to be. They came back to confirm your growth, not to reverse it. And now, as you move forward, you will do so without waiting for anyone to catch up. You will not rush. You will not settle. You will not explain your worth. You will recognize connection not by intensity, but by peace. This is the new standard you carry quietly, confidently, and without apology. Their chapter ends here, not with drama, but with dignity. And what begins next will not feel familiar. It will feel right. My beloved child, once the chapter with their return truly closes, something subtle yet irreversible begins to unfold within you. It does not arrive with excitement or noise. It arrives as stillness. A deep, grounded stillness that feels unfamiliar at first, because your nervous system is no longer bracing for disappointment or hoping for validation. You may catch yourself waiting for a feeling that never comes. No urge to check your phone. No impulse to replay their words. No desire to analyze their silence. This absence of reaction is not emptiness. It is resolution. For the first time, you are not emotionally negotiating with the past. You are present. Fully. And that presence creates a powerful shift. The version of you who once questioned your worth in moments of distance no longer exists. You have outgrown the need to be chosen by someone who could not choose you consistently. Their return closed a loop that had been draining your energy quietly for longer than you realized. Now that loop is sealed. And with it goes the internal conflict that kept you tied to what was already over. What happens next is something most people do not talk about, because it feels too calm to be dramatic, yet too powerful to ignore. Your intuition sharpens. You start sensing people before they reveal themselves. You feel when words do not match actions without needing proof. You trust your internal signals instead of dismissing them. This clarity did not come from avoidance. It came from facing the situation directly and not abandoning yourself in the process. Their return taught you how to remain centered even when old emotions try to resurface. That is mastery. You will notice that situations that once triggered anxiety now barely register. Conversations that once pulled you into emotional labor now end naturally. You no longer overextend to keep harmony. You allow alignment to determine who stays. And without effort, your circle begins to change. Some people drift. Some dynamics fade. Not because you rejected them, but because you stopped sustaining what was never mutual. This is not loss. This is refinement. Your energy is no longer scattered. It is intentional. There is a profound internal confirmation that follows, one that does not need external validation. You realize that the love you were searching for in others was something you were learning to give yourself in pieces all along. Patience. Understanding. Forgiveness. Stability. You once offered these freely to someone who could not hold them. Now you offer them inward. And that changes everything. The emotional hunger disappears. The urge to prove softens. The fear of being misunderstood loses its grip. You understand now that connection is not about intensity or endurance. It is about safety and reciprocity. Their return showed you the difference in real time. It showed you how quickly peace can be disrupted by someone who has not done the inner work. And instead of blaming them or yourself, you chose awareness. That choice will echo forward in ways you cannot yet fully see. As this phase settles, you may notice opportunities aligning quietly around you. Not dramatic invitations, but steady openings. Conversations that flow without effort. People who listen without needing to be convinced. Situations that do not require you to compromise your boundaries to belong. This is not coincidence. This is the result of emotional alignment. When you stop leaking energy into unresolved attachments, you become available for what matches your frequency now. The universe responds not to what you say you want, but to what you are ready to sustain. And you are no longer prepared to carry connections that drain you. You are prepared for partnerships that meet you where you stand. Their return was the final emotional audit. It revealed where you once overgave and where you now stand firm. That clarity becomes your protection. Carry this truth with you, because it will anchor you in moments of doubt. The person who came back did not do so to reclaim a place in your future. They came back to witness that they no longer fit in it. And you did not need to push them away to reach this outcome. You simply stayed true to who you have become. That integrity is your power. This chapter does not end in closure. It ends in elevation. You are no longer defined by who left or who returned. You are defined by the peace you chose to protect. And that peace will shape everything that comes next.